Good evening, everyone. Pardon me. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, the chair must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known.
Did you start recording, by the way?
It was already started, yes. I will note, just because we're in a different room, the Zoom is recording, and we have two cameras back here. Microphones on the table, just in case anyone is curious as to what the mustaches here are. With that, that's the recording notice.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Do you have one there, Tom?
Scott Horsley.
I'm here.
Brian Hughes.
Here.
Tom Camberary.
Here.
Chris Clark. C. Crocker.
Present.
Paul Leary. Rob O'Leary. Luis O'Neill.
Here.
Butch Roberts. Glenn Snell. Gordon Starr. Lovely. We do have quorum.
All right, thank you, Chris, for doing that. How about the minutes? Anybody had a chance to review them? Would like to make a motion?
Motion to accept the minutes as written.
Do a second?
Second.
All in favor?
No, we have to do.
Yep.
Roll call.
I know. Give me a second. All right. For those that are present, Tom Camberary,
Yes.
Z. Crocker,
Yes.
Scott Horsley,
Yes.
Brian Hughes,
Yes.
Paul Neary,
Yes.
Luis O'Neill,
Yes.
and I believe that's everybody, so it passes.
Okay, so we have to pick our next meeting date. It's not going to be such a lovely evening next time. It'll be a rainy evening, so let's see, the 19th is a Tuesday. How does that look at people? Oh, wait a minute, we have a Civic Association meeting that night, Rob, in Katuitt, and Z, I believe, is that right? No,
I thought it was the 18th.
Monday the 18th.
What do you have? You have the 18th? I have the 19th on my calendar. You're not sure? Ooh. I think, what do you say, Rob? You think it's...
Oh, it is the 19th. I'm looking for
Yeah, so we can't do that day. What about the 18th, Monday?
Monday the 18th, we could do Selectmen's. Rob, I'm not sure if you're here.
I'm not.
But let me just
Not available, Rob?
check this.
I'm off that week.
The whole week?
Yeah.
Well, let's do another week. We'd like to have you here.
It's fine with me.
Let's see.
Prior.
Yeah, the 11th or the 12th, let's see.
The 11th, there's no availability in the Selectmen's. We could do it in here again. We could do it over in, actually no, the hearing room is booked again. So it would have to be in here if you wanted to do the 11th.
Yeah, August 11th works for me.
Okay.
Others? Hearing no opposition. 5:30. Will this be back at Town Hall?
No, this would be in here.
Here again.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
5 or 5:30?
What do you prefer?
Probably 5.
5?
Well, I don't know, he said.
5 o'clock good?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
You'll send it on an invite, Chris?
Yep. And I'll make sure it actually sends.
Just to clarify, that was the 11th, correct?
Monday,
Yes.
August 11th, 5 p.m. at the DPW conference room.
Does that work for you, Brian?
Good.
Is that okay?
Yes, it does.
Okay, good. Also on the agenda is future meeting topics, and we probably should just touch base on that. Rob, can you give us a summary of what we got left in the hit list?
So what we were doing is we're working our way through the IA conversation today. We have health here, and that will continue that conversation. I know Griffin's got a presentation as well with some data on some of the things that we talked about last time.
For tonight?
For tonight.
Okay. Okay.
That may bring you to a decision today, or it may yet another meeting to have a conversation on this. So We need to wrap the IA pieces up. After that, there's a number of policy issues that can be discussed and put forward and go with that. So that would be sort of the next things after this. I know there's been an email chain back and forth about, like, for instance, grinder pumps.
Yeah.
As an example, and
Yeah.
things of that nature. That's when I think we would start to, chew on some of those kind of questions.
All right. Let me just ask the committee, are there other topics that, I want to make sure we're not missing anything that we should be talking about before we head towards writing up the recommendations and whatnot?
Yeah, I think the grinder pump thing is really interesting. Yeah, it's gonna be an important part of distinguishing that and getting, information, citizen, level, information out there. I looked on the website today, so there's nothing on grinder pumps presently in that, so. But I did look around on websites and I see other towns that have already put in, systems or whatever, and they put them out. They've gotten a lot of good information about that, so I think it's gonna be really important for everybody to know what that's all about and, what the opportunities are, or alternatives. And then we've always been talking about the wastewater treatment, discharge capacity. That's, an issue, that I think is important, particularly with the Cape Cod Times story about the CLF, suit, and I'm not sure what that, repercussions of that is, if there's anything, on that's, we should be discussing at this level, or if you can afford to give us any kind of update at all about that, from your perspective, even just, before we get into it.
Honestly, I'm not sure what we're allowed to talk about with that and not allowed to talk about with that, to be honest with you. I'd wanna talk to Karen first about what would be, that suit's managed through the legal office.
Right.
We're obviously involved on the technical side of that to some extent. So I would want to have clearance from her in terms of what we're allowed to talk about in the recorded public meeting, before we did that.
Well, why don't we, I think both of those topics are worthwhile, and maybe we can talk before then, Rob, if you can get some advice from council, what we can, I'm guessing we can talk about something in regard to this book. This has been going on for a while. So maybe you can get back to Brian and I in our call and figure out what we can put on the agenda, but I think both of those probably do deserve some attention if we can for the next meeting. Okay, so we'll talk. Any other topics that, yeah?
Just a point of comment, that is on our agenda, right, this coming meeting, so we'll have an executive session on that. Not that may or may not be able to mention a word about it, but it is on our agenda.
There's things going on.
Which agenda?
Town council.
Okay. So
No,
clear.
I had the same thing. I'm like, it is.
The
Okay.
one I'm talking about, Pine Close.
So
Yeah.
just to review our charter here for this organization, we're due to go to town council with recommendations, right? So
Yes,
we spent
yes.
a great deal of time, and there's a lot of granularity. We spent some time today with Tom and Tom to talk about
Yep.
alternative septics and what may or may not be possible, or
yep.
we might be able to recommend. Oh, look who's here.
There he is. Did you go to town hall first?
Of course. Some things are predictable.
That's it.
He did predict it.
I heard about that.
It took us 7.5 hours. This guy.
That's the source of the rumor.
So you're right.
He was just a hell.
He's too a clown.
7.5 hours to
Put
get
me
over
out
here
to sea
from
for
town hall.
7.5
Alright,
hours. You there too?
being-
Yeah, I was a passenger.
We're going to exempt that from the minutes.
3 hours.
Go
Strike
ahead,
that
see,
from
I'm
the meeting.
sorry.
So, my point is just
Yeah.
to review what we're gonna do, that and any other alternatives.
Yes.
One of which, as you know, we're working on together, which
Yeah.
is any restoration of cranberry bogs, mill pond, that kind of stuff. To me, those are the two highest on the list, as I can see, in
Yep,
terms of
yep.
impactful and.
So that's a third item then, you're suggesting? Yeah, I think that's a good, so
Get to.
maybe it's the discharge, it's the grinder pumps, and it's the alternative technologies in the Mills River? Is that
Right.
3 items maybe? Yes, Tom?
Food for thought, because I'm just in the peanut gallery, but the chairman did ask months ago if there should be a limitation on number of bedrooms and wastewater discharge after connecting to sewer because of those capacity issues.
Ah, so that's
We're not
related to,
talking
that's
about-
related to that.
He just never heard back.
Okay,
But
well,
perhaps
maybe we
they-
can discuss that in the context of the discharge.
Because
Limitation?
if that were to occur, then
Yeah.
of course we have a lot of experience with that in
Good
our
point.
office.
Yes, you do.
And if you need to limit the flows,
Okay.
we would assist with that.
So a sub bullet item would be flows and Board of Health regs relative to the discharge capacity. Yeah. Okay,
I
good.
know other towns have done that.
Yes, thank you. All right, well, I'm glad I asked. 3 or 4 items there. We should-
On that subject, that was discussed at town council, the zero.
Flow neutral?
Flow neutral thing,
Yeah.
was it? Yeah.
That's definitely on there.
They
So-
did discuss it.
So I have
They
a,
have several times, but it's coming up again.
Oh, okay.
Because some draft language was prepared by the town's council,
Mhm.
so that'll be forthcoming.
Okay.
so I have a question regarding Paul's comment in executive session. Can we have executive session here too? Have a similar discussion, or is that not?
Again,
We can find out, okay. I mean, maybe if you guys can talk about it in executive session, it's relevant to our discussion, maybe there's a way for us to have the same.
And you wanna have legal in the room.
Right,
I doubt
understood.
it, because this body isn't a party to the issue, but.
Oh, I
we
see,
can ask them.
right, okay, well, whatever.
Because
Rob.
they meet in executive session to discuss legal strategy.
Okay.
And that's
We're not
something
gonna
you
do
would.
it, right, of course.
What we could update you on is the factual status, what filings have been done, what the next filings
Sure.
are, what the results of those have been.
Okay,
That could be.
that's fair, that's fair. All right, well, unless I hear more, those are good additions to our discussion. We'll put those on the agenda for the next meeting. And for those who came in a couple minutes late, what was the date again, 11th?
August 11th
August
at
11th.
5 p.m.
Here.
Right here at the
That's
DPW.
Oh, that's at the DPW office. All right, so I guess I'm gonna, as the chair here, I'm gonna ask if maybe we could flip 3 and 4 in respect to our Board of Health Department members, in case they wanna, unless you're gonna stay anyways, would it helpful to address those first?
No, I'm interested to
What's
hear
that?
what the watershed voted, the draft.
You wanna hear about it?
Yeah.
All right, then let's do it. Let's do it then.
Another question,
Yes.
this meeting next month is gonna be at 5 or at 6.
5 o'clock, we
You
decided.
guys are calling audibles on us. Yeah.
Okay, Tom, that's fine, just wanna make sure. So, yeah, let's do the update on the watershed permit. Is that coming from Rob?
So, I can talk on it a little bit. So, as you guys know, the draft watershed permit is out for public comment. Mass DEP has updated the deadline for when comments are due. They pushed it back a week. So it is now August 18th. That is due to some technical issues on their end. It does not affect the watershed permit from our side whatsoever, other than it's just gonna be a week behind. That's it. Otherwise, that's really the only update there is,
Oh,
other
really?
than public comments open. So, we don't really see the public comment, they're not feeding it to us, there's nothing, it's all in Mass DEP's hand.
So DEP hasn't asked for any additional information, there's no
Not as far as
technical
I'm aware.
deficiencies or anything like that?
No?
no, we went back and forth with them during the technical review part, and we did some of that back and
Yeah.
forth then, but at this point, the draft is what the draft is, it's out.
Okay.
Now it's sort of static until the public comments all taken in and compiled, and then they'll make a decision off that.
Where is the draft?
Huh?
Where is the draft permit available?
Where is it?
On the
Online?
website.
Through
I'll send you a link.
through the environmental monitor, I will send you the link and the instructions. It's a little annoying to get to, but.
Yeah, Chris, we had asked at the last meeting, I think, because of it being difficult and annoying, is it possible for you to just send us the draft permit?
I don't think I ever got an official confirmation of that.
I mean, let me just.
So at this point, I don't wanna do anything that would potentially mess up DEP's stuff, so I'm gonna
We can
go
ask
with no.
DEP staff.
But, yeah.
We can ask DEP staff if we can share.
I mean,
with this group.
why would they say it's a public document, right? I mean, why would they,
Yeah.
I can't imagine why it wouldn't be.
It's a public document,
accessible.
if you're asking for comment.
So I went on today and it had kind of like a red line document, and then
Yeah.
it did say there was a final document, is what it actually said on the site, but that was today,
I haven't looked at it recently.
so. I don't know. Final meaning, final
Yeah.
to be reviewed by.
Actual
Yes.
final
Actual
version
final
approved.
reviewed by.
Final draft.
Final draft, thank you.
I
Thank
was
you.
surprised, I thought it was kind of short myself when I looked at
Yeah, it was
it. I mean,
relatively
as far as the
short.
document, but on that page, there is a variety of associated documents
Right.
that make up the
Right.
body of it and the background of it and everything. Lots of interesting back and forth from questions from DEP to DPW and all that kind of thing, which I think is enlightening. So that might be a reason why I think they don't wanna just send a permit, because there are all these other things in there. And, you know, it would be nice if, you know, you could show the website, just maybe give us a tutorial and say, this is what's in this document, that's what's in this document, that's what's in this document, and, you know, so.
I mean, if you
I'm not
want,
sure
yeah,
what-
I can.
Let's not take the time now.
All right.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna suggest is, I'm only bringing this up because you had mentioned that it might be tricky to get to, which I was frankly
Right.
surprised at. But that, it's on DEP's website, right? So maybe we could, if committee members wanna get it, which I suspect several will wanna look at it, any trouble, let me or.
You sent the link last time.
I sent the link
with
and I sent the instructions.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
did
that
you
went out
try
last
to use
time?
it?
Yeah.
It worked out okay?
I got to.
All right,
yeah.
all right, all right,
Yeah.
good, thank you. I just wanna
Yeah.
make sure it's successful.
I mean, yeah, if you do have an issue, by all means, please reach
Okay,
out.
okay.
But it's
Tom,
DEP.
you have a comment, question?
At the end of this discussion, leading into the next discussion, I've been to several DEP meetings with Mary Beth Chubb,
Yeah.
was the speaker. And I've been to all Board of Health meetings where the town manager was the speaker about the watershed plan. I'm talking about the watershed plan. Very specific. I asked the question, will IA systems be required if this gets approved? The answer was no, from DEP. IA systems are not required once this watershed
Correct.
permit is approved.
But the
Right.
town, so to clarify that, because we're going off the CWMP and because the way our watershed permit is written, based on the CWMP, we are not required as a community to do IA systems. Community may decide they want to in addition to the CWMP, and that's what this committee has been talking about. But they are not required to do it as part of that, everybody within 5-year thing.
Okay.
I'm glad we.
I think that's right, Tom.
I just wanna make sure everybody
Yeah.
understands that, but thank you.
Yeah,
Because
we'll
I was
talk about
at the meeting I was at last time, was 2 or 3 months ago, it just seemed like there was an agenda being pushed in that direction. There wasn't anybody else but myself that was trying to speak in opposition, it seemed like, when I was at that meeting, so.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to keep, that, thank you, Robert, for clarifying.
But that's the nexus of the challenge here, right? It's nice to have a permit. A permit doesn't solve the problem, right? So the question is, how do we move forward a plan that we can propose to town council that addresses solving the problem within the context of having a permit? You know, my concern is, if we don't have the money to get the permit done, what do? My problem is, if we don't actually achieve the timeline as hoped, what does that mean? We know it's an adaptive plan, that's great, but adaptive how? And to me, that feeds into the question of alternative systems, and perhaps the comment is, once they're fully certified. I know Tom Lee is concerned about certification with good reason, and there is at least one system that we know of that's probably pretty close, a year or whatever away. So when we finally get a system that can achieve a high level of performance, does that then fit into the mix of what the solution may be going forward? I guess I see there being a series potentially of triggers that, great, we've got the first 5 years of the plan, we're supposed to achieve X, Y, Z. But what if we only achieve 50% of X, Y, Z? What then? Do we just kick the can? Or do we have some other mechanism that allows adjustment so we can assure the community we can reduce the load to the extent we want to within the permit context. And then the bigger question is that really enough for the community ultimately, and shouldn't we look at a longer term solution that goes beyond just the permit load question?
Yes.
Have other communities wrestled with this and resolved it? And if so, who?
You mean the use of IAs
Yeah.
as part of the watershed permit?
Right.
Well, first of all, I think there's still only one watershed permit, that being Pleasant Bay, so this Barnstable's likely to be second. So there's no permits, but there are plans that have been approved or in the process that include those.
What do they require?
The plans don't require anything, the regs.
Right. Yeah.
So the plan is proposed
To require.
And I can speak to Tisbury and Wellfleet. I know the Vineyard in general, all 6 towns are pursuing this. I think it's fair to say all 6 towns are gonna have IA components from what I'm hearing in their plans. But there's no permits yet.
Yes, all right. And is there, in those plans, is there language that, in terms of requiring it going forward, and are there,
Well, there's 2
triggers?
So 2 towns have health regs in place, Tisbury and Wellfleet.
Okay.
Mashpee has some regs in place, but I'm not sure exactly what they say. We've been hearing about that. Those are the ones that I know of.
Okay.
Falmouth is seriously considering it, but you know more about recent, you've talked to them.
They're considering it, and I think part of the devil in the details that I'm talking about is we have some systems that DEP says can be used, right?
Yeah.
But these are also not, commonly will tell you, fully approved by the state, right? They're still provisionally approved. And so I think that, that is probably a hurdle that needs to be achieved. But to me, that doesn't mean we can't design something that says, once achieved, this could be a tool to help address whatever considerations we decide we want to adjust, whether it's just within the context of the permit itself, because we didn't get the funding, because we weren't able to achieve the timeline, or whether it's to go beyond that to try to deal with some of the other things that we talked about in the previous meeting, such as areas within 500 feet or some distance of the water body, right? To me, those are the kind of things. And my main concern is we try to do something that the structure is relatively simple. We can make it really complex. It will never happen, but we can figure out
So,
relatively straightforward.
Brian disappeared?
What happened to Brian?
He just had his hand up.
He did. We shut him down. Nice job.
Don't do this to me.
Well, while we're
I'm talking
calling
about
him
myself.
up, just maybe to put out some hopefully clarification, and if anybody has different opinion of this, let me know, but part of the confusion, I think, is this, none of these systems are approved general approval down to 10 milligrams per liter, the 19 milligram per liter are.
Chris.
But what Z was referring to is DEP has issued a BART list, best available nitrogen reducing technologies, which are acceptable to DEP. And those are 7 technologies on there. I think 2 are general, or no, 2 or 3 are general, the others are all provisional. So that's kind of confusing, but essentially what it's, I think my interpretation is DEP is saying it's okay to use provisional to satisfy a watershed permit, or to satisfy the watershed permit regulations Title V revisions. And provisional systems have no limit on how many can be installed. I'm quite sure that's true. But some towns, some people are asking, do we write regulations?
But just hang on. So,
Yep.
so currently, you have a watershed permit that will theoretically be approved, hopefully, based on this current CWMP.
Yep.
That's already done. So if the town decides it wants to put IAs in addition to that, you don't have to worry about that. That's just a matter of you guys and ultimately town council and Board of Health having a conversation about what do we want to do. And so if the town decides, and again, I'm not advocating this position, I'm using it to illustrate the point.
Yeah.
The town says, look, these areas, the phase 3 thing, that's the last time. This will not be sewered for another 20 or 30 years. So anything that dies within that time, within one septic lifetime of sewering coming in, cannot replace the Title V, it's gonna go back. go back with an IA system, the town has these approved IA systems. Or, you know, go through that process. I don't believe necessarily that that's a DEP wicket on the permit. What that is purely, is Board of Health comfortable requiring that so that we could then require that, because we don't have that enforcement capability they do. So that's sort of an internal conversation to that, which is different than saying we are going to substitute a portion of the plan with a different thing, now IAs. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So
Just for your information, we have a Board of Health meeting next Tuesday, and there are 2 IA systems, 2 properties. Just about every agenda has IA
Right.
systems
Yeah.
on the agenda, because they wanna either add another bedroom, like an ADU, or
Right.
to make it work in a nitrogen sensitive area, or in this case, and also they're rebuilding the whole house, and they're close to wetlands. So, I answered all those questions on your list from last time.
Yes.
But, we're definitely open to the water body setbacks, things like that, yes.
Tom, just clarification on your current requirement, does it specify which type of IA? Does it have to be a general approval? No.
Not yet, but he worked on a draft.
We open up in terms of the technology, because,
Okay.
you know, we don't want to limit in terms of what kind of technology can be used, depending on what is best available for that locations and what is, we're totally up to the engineer. And
So how do you decide what's acceptable to the Board of Health, if, you know, which system they propose, the engineer, or is it completely open to the design engineer? Is there any guidance or anything you
to
read?
me, I'm open to
Okay.
any system.
But we are working on a draft to require the best available technology. We're working on that.
Right.
I mean, one option is to reference the DEP's best available nitrogen. I mean, they've put some blessing on it, so there's some precedent there.
yeah, but doesn't that carry some 19s at this point? still?
Some of them are 19 on
Yeah.
there. Other
Some are
towns,
11.
well, just to get, Tisbury says 13 milligrams per liter or better,
Yeah.
third-party test data, and Wellfleet says 10 milligrams per liter.
So that's my point, to just utilizing the Bernard, or whatever that thing's called, is that, I think that's a very broad world.
It is, yeah.
If we were to do this in the
Recording
town,
in progress.
if we were to do this in the town, I would argue that we might want to actually limit that to different systems, not necessarily just, you know, anything that's been around for 20 years, it's a 19 that maybe gets it, maybe it doesn't.
I think you limit it to a level of performance.
Sure.
And
That would make a lot of sense.
Whatever it is.
Brian, you had your hand up a while ago before we lost you, so we want to recognize you.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Can't hear you, muted.
Yeah, I clicked on lower hand and that sort of threw me into my own Zoom. I don't know what happened. I was just raising the question that is previously discussed, what happens if we don't meet the goals set forth in the CWMP? So it's supposed to be X, Y, Z, and we only do 50%. Do we monitor throughout the life of the CWMP and ask someone, DPW, to take corrective actions if we don't meet, say, 40% at 2 years in, or wait till the end of the 5 years and just address it in the next 5 year?
So we do monitoring yearly, that gets submitted, we have annual reports that we have to submit on the plan in addition to the 5-year update. And the permit has distinctive, and Griffin jump in on this, because you've seen it more recently than I have, has distinctive thresholds at certain points that you're required to meet. So I guess I'm not as worried about that we're gonna be at 50% of our goal at some point in time. Unless something massively changes that I'm not thinking of right now, which is possible. So that's how that works. So yes, we're looking at it annually. It's not like we're all of a sudden gonna sneak up on it and say, oh, we just didn't do it, sorry.
Right.
Jump in with your, if that's.
No, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's performance goals in the permit that are outlined that we are gonna have to report annually and every 5 years. So, I mean, if there's if we miss a goal, that'll be reported. I mean, we'll be seeing that, and we'll have to figure out what the corrective actions are.
And those goals are all percent reductions achieved?
They're load removal.
Right. At the source.
Which is load removal from basically source interdiction.
Do you know
Not-
offhand, 75% of 20 years, do you know what the offhand?
It's in the draft permit.
80% at
There's-
20 years.
Yeah, there's tables
80%, 20
in the draft permit for watershed.
Is it roughly 20% every 5 years? I mean, or we get.
It varies per watershed. It's based on our plan.
Watershed by
Yeah.
watershed, it's actually laid out in the
Correct.
draft
Yeah.
permit by watershed.
Yeah.
Right.
So we basically
Quite distinct.
calculated how much we're gonna be removing by each project each
Yep.
year.
Yep.
And that got put into a table on a watershed by watershed basis.
Thanks. So we've obviously segued into the next agenda item here, which is
fine.
fine, yeah.
I didn't pay an awful lot of attention to the IAs, because I didn't think that was really gonna be a factor in here, but as I've seen this thing progress, there's been a lot of discussion about it, so it must be something hot. What I have seen is reams and reams of projections for cash flows and so on and so forth. So all of a sudden you say, okay, you can have IAs. Do they opt out of the system entirely? So in other words, 20% of the cash flow isn't gonna go the way it goes. Who's gonna service the debt? What, I mean, this is maybe a little bit further down the road, because you're kind of the preliminary stage of it, but there's gotta be a financial aspect to it if you opt out of the system.
Yeah,
That's
so
the question.
again, to date, what's been discussed is an and, not an or. So that the people that are going to connect into the system are going to still connect into the system. The question is there additional properties you want to address, or are there properties you want to address in the interim before they connect into the system? There hasn't been a or part of this yet, where now you're having to balance out things like that, or balance out or remodel the loads and that kind of thing.
In other words, there isn't an opt-out option.
Yeah,
At this point.
the plan's
I
designed to achieve.
view as a tremendous mistake, okay? Because creating an off-ramp to save potentially hundreds of millions of dollars, if you look forward. Now, my understanding from talking to many people, many of the people in the room, is if we look at phase 3, the most costly area, where there's 2,500 systems, call it roughly, okay? And you look at that and you say, well, we're not gonna get there for the next 20 years for all practical purposes. And yet we know that those systems are old. We know that they're gonna fail. We know that if we upgrade them sooner, not tomorrow, but sooner, that we're gonna be ahead of the game. So doesn't it behoove this group to address that question, so we have an off-ramp to potentially save, to this gentleman's comment, hundreds of millions of dollars? I think that we need to look at that very, very carefully. Notwithstanding the fact that Tom and Tom aren't ready for these systems yet, they are coming. You know, there's 200 in the ground now. They're performing at extraordinarily high levels. And so when there's 2,000 in the ground and they're performing at high levels, we don't want to squander that, do we? So I don't.
You and I are saying the same thing.
What's the hundreds of millions of dollars of savings? Avoiding sewers?
I think phase 3, if
You
you
can't
do the
avoid
math
sewers.
based on 2019 dollars,
Right.
Dan, it's hundreds of millions of dollars.
Okay.
I have no doubt
Just
in my
trying to
mind.
clarify, but you're premising that on the fact that you're gonna meet the standard. The current IA technology will not, we've modeled it, does not.
And I just said, when it's ready. I didn't say tomorrow. I said it's coming. So when there are levels that are satisfactory, whatever those might be, let's not miss the opportunity by saying, no, we have a permit to go put in sewer, let's ignore this. And all I'm saying is let's make sure we have an off-ramp, so we say, when we have technology that it can achieve levels of performance that are acceptable and proven by somebody, can decide who, that we can take advantage of that early.
So
That's my point.
what we have said,
But you need to get very close to zero nitrogen in the effluent.
I think you're gonna get very close to the numbers I'm seeing right now. We're 2-3 milligrams, so 70% better than the plant. I think we can do it.
so,
But let's prove that we can do it.
all right,
I agree.
we're saying the same thing.
Right.
You misunderstood what I said apparently. What I said was and, meaning, so for what we talked about last time, what we proposed last time was that you would take, and Griffin's got some numbers to show. If you did, for instance, in the phase 3 area and said, that's a 20-year, that's a septic lifetime away, if you know what I mean by that.
Right.
You know, so if you said that area, we are going to do IAs immediately as they die, you know, as a natural recurrence. What the plan has always said was it's then going to monitor what's happening. And if the combination of the bogs, the pond, Warren's Cove, whatever we did in phase 3 area with IAs, to a much smaller extent, the stormwater, yada, 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 the combination of all that, if it makes the difference necessary, then we can go at a later time and try to get the plan changed for the phase 3 area. I think that's the way it's always been understood to be going down.
But it's not a permit.
What's that?
But it's not in the permit.
But the permit gets, we're gonna be touching that permit every 5 years.
Yeah.
You know, so the permits today, 5 years from now, we'll hit it up at the updated, you know, 5 years after that. So there's, the point of that is that, I think we're saying the same thing in the sense that we have a plan that's allowing us to move forward. It's allowing us to be permitted. It's allowing the community to satisfy the requirements of the regulators. We can, as a community, decide to do additional to that, which then may, very much like the bogs, the pond, and Warren's Cove, bear fruit that then allow us down the road to avoid sewering the phase or aspects of the phase 3 area. There's probably a couple parts of that we're gonna have to sewer regardless. So we gotta get up north of Schuyl's Pond for other reasons. And it looks like likely Long Pond, Marston's Mills will probably want to get up around there for other reasons as well. Not a nitrogen reason.
Don't you say?
Hang on, please. And so we're seeing kind of the same thing in that process. And then that allows that to play out. And so Griff did some number calcs on looking at the 500-foot radii, what that would translate into, looking at the phase 3 area, what that would translate into. It may be worth looking at that stuff at this point, and then going forward from there. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you, but I want to finish that.
We're all talking about only nitrogen here, but there are other parameters, if you know, phosphorus, viruses that, Dr. Waller on our Board of Health has a new Fuji system on the lake, and it's gets rid of phosphorus. I don't know about the nitrogen. Both, okay. So what, I'm just saying, we have to look at, sewer is much better, as Dan said, in all these things. And
I'm just gonna suggest a couple thoughts here. My sense is there's a lot of unknown. We're talking 20, 30 years out, right? First thing, the model, MEP model is good, but it's not perfect. It's not, you know, there are problems with it. It's not super accurate, okay?
So I would say George Hoyfelder said, sewer is the best solution. We've had it at the Board of Health too. I'm sorry.
So that's an unknown. The other unknown is where we're going to be financially 20, 30 years, right? And the other unknown is how well these IA is going to work. But the track record is pretty good right now, and they're getting better. And then I guess the thing that strikes me is somebody said it earlier. If you look at the phase 3 areas, I think you said it right. You need a bunch of systems that are going to be replaced. Are we going to put Title V's in the ground?
So let him go. Let me
finish. The other thing I keep thinking about is we talk about costs of IAs. The number that seems to be coalescing is like 55 grand, right, for the whole thing. But the marginal cost, somebody's going to put a Title V in. That's half of that. So the difference of addressing the nitrogen is half of that. It's like 27K. Okay, so the question is it worth town investing? Because that's probably going to be.
No, and as we talked about last time, it's 27K, but then there's like an $18,000 tax right. You know, I mean, there's other things
to finance it,
cutting that thing off, so it's
making it better.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
No, that's what we talked about. That was on that sheet we passed out last time.
I'm just trying to set.
I'll wrap up here. Define what you get for it. Sorry, you can't define what you get for your 27K.
You mean nitrogen reduction?
Yeah.
Well, right now we're getting 6.7 milligrams per liter on average. It's going down.
But I'm saying in the water body, in the estuary.
Oh, you can multiply. You can look at the load per house.
Well, we've done that.
That's right. But you can calculate the load reduction if you make an assumption of the effluent, right?
Right. But what's the value of that reduction?
Well, what impact will it have?
If you reduce nitrogen in the 3 base by 2%, what's the value of that reduction?
Well, we have a permit requirement, but everything better than that, and
and achieving it is a step in the right
But
direction.
what's better than cost? What's better, what's the value of
You can
better?
do the TND on that, Dan, I don't understand your argument, really.
Are you saying is it not worth it if we get 80% the way there?
Is it
But
because you say
it's
that?
not 80%. What if it's 2%? Is it worth it?
If it's 2%, then the systems are performing around 24 milligrams per liter, and I would say it's not worth it.
Let
But
Griffin
no
present
evidence
this,
that happens.
let Griffin present this data.
Okay.
One thing, before I get into this, one thing was brought up, about the IAs, an IA proposal not being in the permit.
Yeah.
The permit, we were required to demonstrate compliance with the TMDLs, which we weren't able to do with the IAs at the time, because the provisional approval is at 11 right now, 10 or 11. Those numbers, the math just doesn't work right now, so, certainly that's the basis of the plan that currently exists. So what I did was I compiled, this is just a compilation of data. I'm not trying to make a case for anything.
Full screen for the old people.
I can do the best I can here, yeah.
Wow.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, I can just zoom in on the various things. If this isn't a PowerPoint, this is PDF.
Thank you.
So there were a couple of data points that were asked for last time, and then using those data points, I crunched some math just to try to quantify efficacy, right? So 2 data points that were requested last time were how many property transfers are we seeing in town, and what is the percentage of septic failure we're seeing in town. On the left is the property transfer data provided by the town assessor. On average, we're seeing about 4.9% of the parcels in town are transferring every year annually, which was actually quite a bit higher than I was expecting. Yeah, that's pretty substantial.
Does that include within family? I'm not sure. Well, it does probably.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. If it's in a trust, I doubt it. Yeah. But this is the data that we were provided. And then as far as septic failure data, Tom was nice enough to provide us data. It's about 140 to 160 septics in the last 2 years have been failing town-wide. That's about 0.5% of the parcels in town. So you combine the two, I called it 5%. Meet the 2 triggers, just because I like round numbers, right? So that's the basis of how we kind of prepared this. Just so quick background, I did a more or less case study in the 3 bays. This is the 3 bays. This is our plan in the 3 bays, red being phase 1, green being phase 2, yellow being phase 3, and the stages being out here in these various colors. I wanted to remind everybody of that because I think timing needs to come into the conversation too, as we've been talking about, right? Right here, this is a figure from the CWMP, which basically takes the MEP threshold model, which is the model that we based the design of the CWMP on. That's the model that they say, if you remove these percentages of septic systems from these sub-watersheds, you'll achieve the TMD. That was, and this is a table from our CWMP, that was roughly this number here, 60.5 kilograms per day had to be removed. That converts to this per year. So that's the basis of the math that we're just about to look at. It gets a little tedious, but I summed it up. So I just wanted to give you some background. Right. First scenario we looked at was the one we were talking about last time, which was 500-foot setback to water in the 3 bays. This includes the Marston's Mills River, not just the estuary. There's 947 in that area, 170 roughly of them do not have septic. So there's about 776 parcels in this area. They're broken out by phase, and we have percentages of how many of them are in each phase. So in phase 1, for instance, so in the next 5 years, we anticipate 12% of these parcels in question will be on their way to being sewered. Phase 2, 28% of them, and phase 3, 24%. About 30% of them aren't contemplated in the CWMP right now. Most of them be Grand Island, but there's some others. And then again, the assumed septic life for consideration here would be somewhere between 10 to 20 years, right? That's how long you expect to get out of a septic system. Hopefully on the upper end of that.
That's short. That was pretty short.
So I mean, it varies. I mean, with an EIA, it may be less. Like we don't have data on how long these systems are going to last. We made the assumption of 10 to 20 years for the purposes of the discussion. So this is a model that we pulled together. Don't expect you to look at every cell, but the takeaways are basically what we talked about last time was the triggers for potential IA, right? Was a failed system and a transfer of title. So that's that 5% number that I came up with. There's about 776 parcels in this area. 5% of that's 39 parcels a year. It's about 0.8% of the threshold removal rate that we need to remove in the watershed to achieve the TMDL. So basically the takeaway is about 40 parcels a year. It gets less than that as you go along because people are being replaced and there's less numbers. Less of that 5% exists, right? It's less than about 0.5% of the required load that needs to be removed in the watershed. It's up to about 8% of the required load that could be removed prior to phase 3 if that 5% continues over, right? And then phase 1 and phase 2 parcels likely don't get a full life septic life expectancy if they, replace within an EIA during that time frame. So this is all 3 phases. On the next slide, I have a table for if we don't consider phase 1 and if we don't consider phase 2, just for argument's sake. But ultimately, you see similar numbers that the relatively small quantity of numbers of parcels per year at the 5% of the 776. And it's a relatively small percentage of the load that needs to be removed in the watershed. We did do a second example, which was for phase 3. Same math here, but it starts with a larger quantity of parcels. There's about 1,800 parcels that we identified in phase 3 that have septic systems. So about 5% of that's about 90. You get about 2% of the required load removal a year with this approach. And after 15 years, so the beginning of phase 3, that would be about 20% of the required load removal in the watershed. Again, the caveat to all this is under the current models, we need to sewer all the parcels that are identified to sewer, even if they've had an EIA installed previously, because we won't achieve the TMDLs. One could argue that this would be a bet on the EIA technology, right? Because this model is completely done with the provisional approval of 11. If the general approval goes down to 5, for instance, the numbers will look better.
So you were using 11 for this?
We used 11 for this because that's what the provisional approval is. Right. That's all we could go off of at this point. So if it goes down to 5, the numbers would look more.
And in this scenario, it says all of phase 3. Does that
All of
mean
phase 3.
the yellow
It's all the yellow.
The yellow.
It's just the yellow area.
Everywhere in yellow has an eye.
Everywhere in yellow when they sell or when their septic system fails. So the 5% of everywhere in the yellow.
You just can't replace the title.
Right. You basically would make a district in the yellow area that says.
But as these numbers calculated, it's assumed that every house has it upgraded?
It does not.
Okay.
It assumes 5% every year upgrade.
For how long?
For that 15 years.
That 15 years.
And what's the collective effect of that, 20%?
Yeah, it's 20% of the load removed. We would be basically to be about 1,000 parcels. That would 1,000 of the 1,800, so a little less than half.
So it's linear if you went to 5 as a treatment, with 20 to 40. So
yeah, it would be roughly linear. Yeah.
And if you did all of them, it would be 80.
No, it starts dying off. If you see the removal's less because you have less parcels that you're actually addressing. Each year there's less parcels because there's less parcels remaining. The total amount of load, the total percentage of the threshold scenario in phase 3 is about 30%. So you can remove 20 with this approach, but then it continues to go down over time. So once you get to here, you're at less than 1% that you're removing a year. You started at about 2%. So it just continues to go down. Eventually this number would be 30 once you have them all, roughly.
So just to go back to Tom's question, I guess, this 20% is after 15 years?
15 years.
And at that point, he said, I think 40% of the parcels are converted to IA?
It would be, 1,000 of the 1,800, so 60% roughly.
Okay.
60% roughly in the phase 3 area.
So if you double the number of systems, or almost, that would go to.
Yeah, that'll get to about 35% of the required removal, because that's what exists.
Okay, in 5 milligrams, it would get to 45% or something.
Yeah, well, I don't understand why it doesn't go up like linearly.
Because there's only 30% of the load in the whole 3 phase water. So, all right, so The number there is not the load in the free-based watershed. It's the percentage of the threshold that we need to remove.
Oh, I see. Right.
It's not the percentage of the load in the watershed. So ultimately we're getting towards a certain number that we need to remove. That number is 30% within this area. So, you're not gonna go beyond the 30%. You would just get there faster with
What would be
better numbers.
your estimate if, once all the systems are in place, 100% and we're 5
It
million?
would be about 33%.
And 5 milligrams, the total load.
It'd be
of the
30,
total-
correct.
Of the total 20.
I didn't do the math at 5, but
That's what I'm saying.
we didn't do the math at 5, but for the sewer, it was about 35%. That's the number we came up with.
Which is 0.
Right.
What's that?
That's with the nitrogen at 0, if you, there's no.
Yeah, I get that. Well,
So
it's also, the 0 comes at a gigantic expense.
I'm just saying.
I understand zero. Yeah.
We can run the model at a
Yeah,
different
but I guess-
percentage. But these are the numbers we came up with.
So here's good, I think that's been helpful. To me, it goes back to one of the key things you talked about, which is time and time value of 2 things. So I would look at that and say 2 things. I would say, first of all, we get a jump on what happens in phase 3, which is slated to start for a long time. And number 2 is you potentially take a huge chunk out of how much you might have to store. And if you put present value on that number, it could be very, very big indeed. I would say it's over $100 million. So I think there's reasons to pursue this, albeit it's not a perfect solution, but this is the kind of thing if tied into the potential success of restoring cranberry bogs and reducing a huge chunk of load that way. Together, we could really get a major jump on saving town a lot of money and moreover, doing it more quickly, which I think is particularly a critical element given what we're seeing in a watershed, which is a more rapid deterioration.
So I agree with you. One of the things that I found interesting from this, just as an individual, not in DPW's position, was sort of the value of this scenario versus the previous scenario. Each will bring their own political pain because you're going to be sort of imposing new rules on a group of people. This scenario, you're going to get, by doing that, you'll get 20% after 15 years, and you've started that. And I looked at time of travel, as we talked about last time, opposite as you did. You're looking at how can I make the impact the fastest? This is the stuff that's going to take the longest to get out of the system. So from my perspective, it just seems like if we're gonna take that political hit, the value of it on the second scenario is better than the value of it on the first scenario. That doesn't say you can do both, I guess, but just as you compare the two.
I've got so many questions that I can't remember which ones to ask. I've already forgotten.
This meeting.
I'm gonna start with the last one. That is, you're talking about political hit. Does that assume that an IA system has more of a political hit than sewer connection?
No, but what I'm saying is that if you go to homeowner X and say, the rules as they currently apply aren't the same for you now.
Right.
You have a different set of rules, and then when your Title V dies or you sell, you can't use another Title V, you now have to put an IA in. I'm assuming there'll be people that are unhappy about that. I don't know
Well,
that.
it depends on who pays, I think. That's where we're kind of going, right? I mean, we had this exact discussion well before we got to the and the homeowner gets no value from putting an IA in. Doesn't help if the house is the same.
Yep.
Right.
Well, that's still fine.
The value goes to the public. So why would the homeowner pay for that?
That's a conversation.
If they don't, then there's no political hit to the homeowner. If somebody else is paying it, we're going to say fine.
Got it. My point.
So that's why I was asking about the political.
But my
point
point
cost is 0 for the homeowner.
That, as I said, that's town council conversation.
Why is the cost 0 to the homeowner?
Well,
I mean, the benefit.
It should, well, if you put a nitrix in your system, like in Permaquid, how does that make you can brag about it, but it doesn't change your life.
Doesn't it make the home more valuable?
I don't think so. I
mean, if the town requires it and
at
some point in the process and I'm buying it.
I'm just saying it's a public
calculating
value.
that in.
It's a public value.
Selling it within 20 years. Yeah. And you could say upgraded my system. Yeah. Put it in new stuff.
My theory is the cost should be the same whether you're on the sewer or on the septic relative to the public benefit. That's what I keep thinking. And, you know, in my mind, it's roughly half of 55K. Somebody building a house in the Mills now, they can put a system in for what is it, 30 grand for Title V, 25, 30 grand? So the new one, put an IA, it's another 27,000.
Like if
The
you
value of that 27,000 is for the residents of the town, not the homeowner.
But I would actually put that third rail and say there should be the ability to treat it as a betterment. And allow people to potentially add a bedroom, which I think the Tom will tell you is probably the biggest question they have. Like, what does he get a bedroom?
Yeah.
Well, if he said yes, great, I'll put it in tomorrow. Put it in tomorrow. I don't have to hook up, I don't have to change anything, and they're paying for it. To me, that's potentially a home run. Now, Dan could argue, well, yeah, they still have to pick up to the store sometime. Maybe. But I think that with the changes in the technology, getting a jump on that is worth, I would say, the incentive to do it. I mean, I've always thought you need a carrot and a stick to make this work. It can't just be a stick.
I said before I forget most of the questions, I remember one more, but I'll stop there. How does the lifespan that you mentioned factor into any of the calculations?
So only it doesn't factor into the calculations explicitly. We did prepare the first scenario. We prepared 3 tables where we basically removed phase 1 and we removed phase 2. Where it factors in, and it wasn't accounted for here, is, you know, by this point here, there's 90 some odd parcels that are connected to sewer, but we didn't account for that in this table here. We accounted for it in the future tables.
It's the failure rate that's driving the turnover.
Right.
So I'm wondering, you say that the system 20 years out has to have another one put in? Is that how you're kind of?
That's not contemplated in this model. No.
So
this is just a 776 times 0.05.
Yeah. Okay.
Times concentration over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. But there is that in the background. There's also, you know, some of these 9 here could have been in phase 1.
Yeah. And
you connected them. We did an EIA, and then we had to connect them to sewer, or they could be in phase 2. You know what I mean? So there's a timing issue there that's difficult to quantify. We tried to do that in these subsequent tables here to show that if you don't consider phase 1, this is what the percentage are.
But I think the 10 to 20 years is pretty short. There's pretty good evidence that the new systems, the first thing that fails extensively is the leach field.
Mm-hmm.
And the new
But
system.
he's just looking at the turnover to drive it.
I'm just trying to quantify it as relates to our. I'm trying to quantify it as relates to our plan, right?
Okay.
Trying to tie it to something.
Right. Okay. Right.
And you know, we have the 15-year time frame when.
I'll do one so I can remember.
So in the 500 feet, you've got 8% out. Is that right?
8% of the threshold.
Of the
Correct.
Correct. And if you did 1,000 feet, would you get 20%?
I didn't run the math, but it would be something more than that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we're thinking about a policy to say, all right, 500 feet setback, and we're gonna make all the people do that. Like, is that what we're going to do, or is it?
That's where the life of the septic system comes in, because we're
Yes.
proposing to sewer those properties.
Right.
Within less than a lifetime of the sewer of a septic system. So that's getting problematic for the homeowner.
Right. Within this table here, 40% of the septic systems are going to be sewered with the current plan.
And if you look at that,
But that's not contemplated in these tables.
But there's a large part of that watershed that's nothing's happened. That
in this scenario.
Yeah. There's 30% of this right now that is.
That's why I was
not
asking about.
And I would argue on that side, that 15 to 20 years is not accurate, especially because approximately half of the systems out there are seasonal. And so therefore, the timeline is completely different, okay, than what this map would indicate. And that, to me, is especially important because 70% of the contribution of effluent is actually seasonal. So, you know, we're kind of missing part of the equation, I think, for those closest to the water. You know,
this is very much a multivariable calculus.
It
We're
is.
trying to simplify.
I know. It's
something to make a decision off of, right?
So in the first case, it makes sense to me that, you know, we look at that, the turnover, and say, okay, that gets you to a certain amount of math. It's not going to be perfect, to your point, because there's a lot of different things in the equation here. You know, we got to try to address.
I guess what I'm wondering is the and or question. Is it possible, and this is a fair question, is it possible that if we head down the IA road and we take a first step, 500 feet regulation, we get going, and they start performing as good or better than we thought. And let's say Mill Pond happens, let's say the cranberry bogs start cooking, is there a possibility that the phase 3 sewer either goes away or it gets really small? Is that possible?
That's always been discussed.
Okay.
You know, I mean, the very first CWP anticipates that. It always is talking about the fact that the alternative systems, you know, we're going to put them in and measure. That's why we're continuing with the pond and the bogs in Ward's Cove without, it's not built into the plan, doesn't predicate on it.
And then
We're gonna do that work and then see what it does. So if you, in the world according to Rob, again, my personal position, not DPW's. So if you did that work that's going on anyways, that we talked about.
Yeah.
And then let's say you said for phase 3 area, since you're gonna redistrict it, we're gonna redistrict it, you can't put a Title V back, you can't replace Title V with Title V, but the thing we'll do is we'll let you do the other bedroom thingy, Bobby, or whatever we're gonna do there, you know, as part of that gig. Now you've got sort of a nexus of stuff all going on in that sort of same watershed area. Does that result in that? I can't tell you that. And I certainly wouldn't try to predicate the plan today, but we touch this thing every 5 years.
Right.
And so at some point in time, we will have a sense of that and then be able to ask that question of DEP and then be able to go forward. But that's the very first right of the CWP is that. So that's always been fun. Did I answer your question?
Are the IA systems just gonna be for the water bay areas, or could it be townwide?
Probably in the targeted areas that we're looking at.
Okay, so it's.
At least primary, at least for now, part of the CWP. Target the area we need to reduce the nitrogen.
Somebody outside of that embayment.
Oh, no, I think that's
Yeah, it's ultimately a policy recommendation that,
Be an option.
yeah.
I think of, right? We just presented a case study here.
Right. So what I would encourage you to do is, I'm assuming you want to be done at 7, is that at this point, you want to have, as you say, the Toms, sort of opine on the conversation I date or
On the west conservation conversation.
the one we're just having about,
Yeah.
because they have a dog in that.
Yeah, I think we should hear from.
Yeah, yeah,
Tom
let's hear
about
from you.
what they're doing, what
What
they're
you thought about this?
especially what you're seeing in the real world. I don't sit in every Board of Health meeting, you guys do. So, I mean, what are you seeing for, you know, what happens for what, and what do they want for it, and, you know, what are you able to say yes to, and what do you say no to, and.
I'm gonna add something positive to what you're saying. Talking about the refined IA system. Another positive thing is that they tend to last, yes, they tend to last longer than. And
That's where I was going.
because the
No doubt.
just a little weekend too. That's a positive thing. I don't know if it's helpful here, but it's a positive.
Yeah.
So what would the, and I'm asking you to speak for the board and for your department, which you may not want to do, or division. So were this committee to say, pick one of those 2 scenarios, scenario 1 or scenario 2, that's the recommendation that goes to town council. Is that something Board of Health would be supportive of or not? Because ultimately, whatever recommendation goes to town council, I'm assuming town council would want to see not only the ad hoc recommendation, but the board, but the health's recommendation, and that too. But from a technical perspective, at least, you'd want to have both those entities opine on that. Is that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I want to bring that to the full board and have them.
Would you say that, that you're indicating a lasting one, or is it, are they lasting longer because they're maintained more robustly than a typical homeowner?
More maintenance. Well, and solid going out the.
Better quality after.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, average Joe thinks about his septic system when the shower's backing up, you know, and, no, they aren't on, they're very, at least the folks that I bumped into, they don't have a regimented, you know, pump the thing out every 3 years or every 2 years or whatever. So you know, I think that might be kind of hand in glove with the duration.
But what are those things for the, in terms of monitoring? Are they required?
You have to, depending on the system,
Right.
and
Like,
usually
for
they're
example-
monitoring it, they have an O&M contract.
Yeah. For
Well,
example,
that's a
4
flyer.
times a year for the first 2 years, you have to be tested. And then that gets reduced once you have good 8 tests that are good. So you can reduce it to twice a year.
That's the provisional system, which may change hopefully.
Pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
So let me throw it some updated information on that, but I'm aware of. So, first of all, just remember the one watershed permit, Pleasant Bay, that DEP did agree, but does agree to reducing monitoring requirements to once per year. if it's an IAs we use as part of the watershed solution. In our discussions with other towns, they say, yeah, we'll probably do that again. So the frequency probably will be on the order of once per year, the testing. The other thing I just learned is Mass Tech is now working on the vineyard. They actually have a contract where they're going out to do maintenance and doing 14 systems per day, inspections and sampling for a cost of, they're charging $75 a head, 2 people, $150 an hour, 10-hour day, $1,500 to do 14 systems. That's $110 per system. Do an annual inspection. There's a lab cost on top of that, so we're talking a whopping couple $100, $200 to $300. If you do it, and then my point there is the current model of homeowners and contracts. No, that's not going to work. We're doing 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 system, right? And we've been saying, everybody's saying this for years. We need an RMA. We need it, and that's exactly what Mass Tech is working on, developing that capability. So right now, the homeowner hires a contractor. They drive from who knows where, Brockton out to Wellfleet to take a sample. That's going to be expensive. Yeah. Mass Tech goes out and does 14 systems in a day. That's cheap. So that's the other part. We got to realize if we go IA, there's got to be an RME structure, which is probably in Barnstable.
So my understanding is the Army is required if your plan is predicated on it. If your plan is not predicated on it, then it's up to you whether you wish to do that or not.
True. If you want to save a lot of money, want to seriously consider it. Like I'm talking way more than cutting the cost in half.
No, I understand, but the point of it is the sampling requirements are predicated on the fact that DEP had that as part of the plan.
Yes.
If it's not part of the plan, then my understanding is Board of Health's discretion in terms of how often
That's
it's.
right. That's right.
How
That's how
often
it
it's.
works now. It doesn't work well. A lot of the systems are out, according to Mass Tech, a lot of the systems, maybe not in Barnstable, but aren't up to their testing requirements. They're out of schedule, blah, blah, blah. It's just the system currently doesn't work.
Vineyard's a captive audience too. One-stop shop.
So back to you guys.
Your question, I want to get back to, yes, who asked the question? What will you guys do if the town council says, we think you should do this? Adopt a regulation for, let's say, the 500-foot zone.
Well, you would tell me, put on the agenda.
No, I think the thing though is we have to think financially, who's paying for it, how is it gonna affect the homeowner? Often we have the complaint from the homeowner. Now it's too much expense, what can I do? If I put this IA system, can I get away from connecting to the sewer?
You put it all on the homeowner, it's not gonna go well, I can guarantee that.
Right.
And there's no logical reason why the town would do that.
What is the
Right.
solution?
So the next question is, how do you pay for this, right? How does the town help finance? What are the options? There is a community septic management fund, what's it called? Anybody know? We were looking at SRF, but they're saying the state's now saying they prefer to use this other program, DEP administers Community Septic Management Program, which provides towns can apply for that and then use that money to finance IAs. And then, of course, there's the Aquafund program. That's more homeowner directly related.
Correct.
So my gut feeling is if we're going to do this, we got to figure out a way for the town to participate in the costs. Because if we put this on the homeowner, you're right, it's probably going to be rain.
I just want to quickly interject here that the cost figure we've been saying of $55K per system, this is on an early phase of the adoption of these systems. All other technologies we've seen have had a pretty substantial decrease in cost curve. Like just consider solar, how far down that has come. And 55, I think, is going to be the pessimistic end of the cost system.
Economies reduce the price out there.
Well, my only point on that is on Long Island, they're putting thousands of these in, and it's for $30K pop.
Well, there you go.
And Long Island paying 100% the cost, it's free to the homeowner. That's all I know.
Nothing's free to the home, those are school systems.
Yeah, true. They're paying taxes. Actually, they're financing through the sales tax.
Yeah.
The sales tax. Sales tax. But they're not charging the homeowner for the then
Unless you're a tribal member, then it's free.
Just a
Yeah.
question, are these systems upgradable down the road as technologies improve? And, you know, you buy one today, it's 9%, you upgrade this thing reasonably.
The question is, you're gonna upgrade it to what?
To like,
Whatever
whatever new bark mulch comes out or whatever.
I think that
makes more stuff.
I think the question is probably pretty relevant for phosphorus, and I think the answer is, we don't know yet, but probably. I think if the question is, can you remove PFAS, I'd say, you know, I doubt it, and I'm not sure that's money well spent anyway. I think you're gonna take that out on the other end of the pipe would be my argument. I go back to this, don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
No, I
Okay, so if you've got a system that does almost nothing, and you improve that to 95% of what you hope to achieve, 90, 85%, whatever it is, you're doing pretty well. But to take the end point, I think the challenge here is, how do we recommend something that is going to be viewed as experimental for many, okay, as something that needs to be mandated to be done? So to me, we need to identify areas that have the most likely largest impact on the water negatively, which I go back to is still houses within 500 feet. And those are the ones. And I really have zero problem with incentivizing it by saying, but you can put in a bedroom. You can do, there are incentives to create a roadmap to get people to do it, even though that dilutes it somewhat. I'm willing to dilute it somewhat to accelerate the program. And to me, accelerating the program also allows us to learn something, which is, how's it going to work if we have an RME? How's it going to work to monitor these things? How are we going to see what the failure rate is? Dan's going to say they're going to fail in 15 years. But let's, until we really get these systems in the ground, you really can't prove what it's going to be. Go ahead, Tom.
I agree with everything you say, except be concerned with one thing. If you promise an additional bedroom, Title V, you can't be less stringent than Title V. Title V already has a section where you cannot exceed 660 per acre.
Yeah, I guess
6 bedroom per acre, even with an IE system. So if they already have 6 per acre, they can.
And they have to
have 3.5.
Title V, I get it.
Does that mess your calcs up, Griff? Like, were your calcs predicated on, you weren't predicated on bedrooms or any of that stuff, so that those removals are just to make an assumption on a
Based
home?
on a average home in the watershed.
Okay.
Yeah, I just missed this, so.
Title
What's going
V, Title V only allows 6 bedroom per acre if you add an IA system in the current code. That means if you have a half acre, you can only have 3 bedrooms. Even with an IA system, you can't add your 4th or ADU bedroom.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
And
Be
that
careful of that.
was calculated assuming the IA is at 19 milligrams per liter. So that reg has not been updated, so we now have systems that perform better. What about a variance? Is that a DP variance or is that a Board of Health variance if you want to change that?
I think that's a DEP variant.
DP variance, Tom?
Yeah.
Well, there might be some room there.
Well, the issue is, this is only my feeling right now. is
Yes, yeah.
DEP has changed a lot of the personnel, all brand new
Yes, they
staff
have.
in there.
Yes, they
And
have.
they are training all that.
Yes, they have. Yeah.
They are training, I mean, they are go by the books.
Yeah, they go right by the book.
Find that as well.
Yeah.
Not a lot of flexibility.
No, it's
Young.
Not Brian Dudley.
Brian's not there anymore, but what is the regulation? Just remind us one more time. So if you have an IA, you can get 6 bedrooms on an acre rather than 4.
Yeah.
Right, which is the current
Is that
regulation.
in a nitrogen sensitive area?
Well,
Yeah. Yes.
that's actually a significant incentive right there, right? Which then there's room for an ADU on a 1 acre site or what have you, as long as you put in. Are you seeing much adoption of that?
Yeah, I mean, we have one coming to our next
A
agenda.
few, not many.
Yeah.
But then the thing is that, don't forget, right now by law, by act, but I mean, the governor signed an act, ADU, right?
Right.
So by right, they can
Right.
add the unit in there.
Right.
But
it has
the unit,
but it
when you
has
fall back, it's like, you have to follow by.
You can add a unit, but you have to solve the wastewater problem.
Correct.
Okay, so it's not just a complete it out of
Correct.
jail card.
Right.
Which, that alone may end up actually changing some of this math when I look at it. Right, I don't know what you guys think. I mean, that's to me, one of the opportunities is to look at carrot and stick. So one of the carrots may just be something that people are allowed to do, but they don't know it, right? This is not like generally known. It's not.
No. Let me ask the question a different way, Tom. If our committee recommends to the town council that we think we should try, let's just say the 500-foot reg that we're thinking about talking about, and the town council agrees, how could we help the Board of Health to move that along? How do we get that done?
Because we already have members that want that.
Really?
Yeah.
How many members? You got 5?
5, plus an alternate.
And you got a couple that are already on board, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. 1 or 2. Dr. Waller, hey, right?
Well, he's an alternate.
Okay.
Don't speak for people here.
Yeah.
Don't go there. I have a town council question. What would be the way we might consider financing? And what options might be available?
So I can talk to you about sewering. Mark Mill, Dan, originally approached us at $17,000. And I found that a really, really, really tough hurdle. And a petition to reduce 10. So I am.
That's the cost of the homeowner.
Yeah, well, it isn't really the cost of the homeowner now, is it?
No, that's a direct cost, and it's actually.
That's part of the cost.
Not even the real direct cost.
That's exactly correct. So I'm always very concerned about the cost to the end user.
That's why you got elected.
So, that it's very, very difficult. So, and no matter how you shake this down, whether it be sewering, it's not just for cost, right? But now they got a bill too, right? Just as this is, it's not just the cost. You've got a recurring bill that will never go away forever and ever and ever. So, when you're looking at the body of people on the fixed income side, that's where kind of my belly lies. Now, we're looking at 3 bays, there's some people with means out there. Right? But by the same token, just because they have the means doesn't mean that we should be, I won't say ownerously putting a burden of cost on. So then you pivot to your conversation about, well, maybe the town should pay. Well, I can tell you from financial spot today in the town that we've got some just monster bills that we can't even really get our brains around in terms of possible tax overrides, right? So I guess it's a better way to say, is everybody prepared, every property owner prepared for another $2,000 a year in cost? And you can break it down however you want. You can put it towards school, you can put it towards WMP, or we can put it on giving them free nitrogen reducing system. So that's, to me, do we have an alternative base of funding that we can generate? Do we bring marijuana into the town and just say every dollar that comes in that goes to buy an AI? I mean, these are the conversations that really need to be, I think, fleshed out. And it's not that I don't believe in this process. It's not that I don't believe in any form of nitrogen removing anywhere. It doesn't make sense. But when it comes down to brass tacks, who's going to pay for it, right? That's always really that's the hardest thing that I have to stumble with. I mean, these guys are on the front line, so we make a rule, and then all of a sudden he's the guy who came up with the fact that you could pay an extra $30,000 to put an IA system in it. Just saying. So it's a complicated matter. And this whole ad hoc committee, these are all extremely valid points, and taken by their basis, you go, it's a no-brainer. You should do it. You should, right? Question is, what are we willing to pay for? It doesn't sound like much, but all these things, they add up. We've been pushing off, frankly, the cost of the CFNFD, as you know, in terms of the ultimate bill that's coming in 26.
The other part of the financial thing that I don't know and I really would like to learn is how the 18K tax credit interfaces with other town systems. So, you know, if you figure out which checkbook to use, and let's say you give a homeowner 30K, they're subsidized, okay? They pay they pay for their own leach field and septic tank, you pay for, then do they still get an 18K tax credit? If they do, that's really pretty attractive. But there is some, I've read it, you know how these legislators are, they write these laws you can't, right?
They don't understand.
I read this thing several times, I can't figure it out, but it says something to the effect of, if the homeowner gets some assistance, then they may not get all of the credit.
Right.
Have you read it?
Well, I couldn't figure it out, but the accountant did for my daughter because she had to get on the sewer.
Yeah.
And she chose 10 years to pay the betterment. You can pick how many years out. Yeah. Pay out of pocket to hook up. And that was 10 grand right off, you know, she's 36. She's a homeowner here on the Cape in Centerville. And it was 10 grand right out, and then now a betterment. But I did read in the book, and I said, bring this to the accountant, that you should get a tax credit in some way, shape, or form. And I don't know how that actually worked out, but it's not easy.
Yeah,
It's
just
not
FYI,
easy writing these things down.
I believe this tax credit can apply for either a sewer connection and or an IE rate. We're pretty sure of that, but I just don't know. Let me ask you this, is there anybody in the town, in Bill Mead's office maybe, that could help us drill down on this?
So Milne came in
Milne
and talked to you guys previously. He's the expert on all of this.
Yeah.
Kelly's actually, she can't come to this meeting because she's got a different meeting she's in. Has done a little bit with this by talking to the county and understanding the staff program a little bit.
Yeah.
But I would, in all these conversations, I'd always go back to Milne and talk to him, and he's the expert. And we can ask him to come in
Nice to
to.
get clarification on that. Yeah.
I mean, that's your personal tax credit when you apply for the personal income tax, though.
Yeah, that's the question.
You gotta make the money right enough.
And you get only a portion every year.
Yeah, 4,000.
Yeah.
Rob, again, I'm curious also, I mean, the sewering is kind of coming online now, I'm curious, and I know, and I'm not trying to get off topic, but have you found that the connections, has there been a reduction in cost? Are you finding that, or do you have any idea, like the vendors, does Doug Brown charge X and, you know,
We don't collect that data.
I know you don't.
If they go through the Aqua Fund, that data is available, and we were anticipating trying to collect it and do an analysis, but we don't collect it.
I can see that, I see that when they ask for a 6-month extension, I see the contract price. They're higher than what I thought they would say that. And I'm seeing 20,000. He's 15, 20.
15 to 20.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
depending
on the
distance. They depend upon the site conditions, so we've seen some that are less than that and some that are more.
Sure.
It's really hard to put a number on it.
So with that said, again, you know, I mean, I remember when this conversation first came out about nitrogen reduction, I think we're 30 grand. Kind of thing. I know we've been quoted on the vineyard at 70. So that's just.
I know somebody on Strawberry Hill, it took me 3,300, but they live right next to it.
Some of them are really close, yeah.
Right on the street, she was 10 from
Oh,
her,
really?
from her provider.
Oh, wow.
She is right on the street. She's not.
Yeah, she got a couple of, folks I know.
Is there a mandated timeline to hook up? 6 months. 6 months. And then get
And what's the length of time?
they can get another 6 months if they apply internally. How long? They can get another 6 months if they have a signed contract. Extension from it, but they have to have a signed contract. That's where I see the contract. What was your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to see, I didn't know how the hookups were going relative to the pipe going on the ground. I happen to bike a lot, but I don't road a lot, so it didn't look like a lot.
There's a lot of connections going, and our guys are real busy doing inspections, yeah. I don't have the latest numbers in front of me, but we're well over 50%. Yeah.
Over 50%.
Yeah. There's various waves of when the connections went out and stuff like that, so
So while we've got the two Toms here, what's the committee's feeling about what we want to potentially want to get more granular on what we're recommending here? 500 feet, 1,000 feet, where what do we? What are people feeling about this? Where are we going?
The question in my opinion, I think 500 feet and what you kind of fleshed out, and then, see if we can, you're gonna have to have on the, let's call it the cell, right? Cell's gonna have to be very clear and it's gonna have to be kind of accurate.
Yeah.
What does this tax credit mean
Yes.
in real dollars?
Yes.
What, are we gonna be looking at limiting, lack of a better word, a cap? Do we do a cap like we do some?
And is it 500 feet in three-bay watershed? Where are we, I don't remember the scenario that we're talking about. And
Go back to the
phase 3 area, I can't remember.
So ultimately up to you guys, but we just did a case study of one of the watersheds to
Right.
simplify it.
The last meeting, we provided
Last,
data on
right,
all of
we,
the watersheds.
we had looked at all the
Right.
watersheds, right?
And I think the other question we talked about, Amber, was is 500 feet to the property line or the septic system? How did you do it?
To the property line where it meets the water.
We calculated any intersection of the GIS lot lines.
Property.
Yeah.
So if you go back to that and we look at that map for a minute.
Yeah.
And you go back to that map, and you try to simplify it, there's two ways you can do it. One, you can look at it and say, annually, we're gonna get 40 systems, which is nothing to look at up front, okay? It's like, so what? But if you do the math the other way and say cumulatively, if you do the 40 systems after 10 years, 15 years, it actually adds up to a fair amount and could have a significant impact, financially and in terms of water quality. That's, to me, is the rub. So there's kind of two ways to look at it, and you can be, no, it's hardly anything, couple of systems, and that gets to the ultimate argument that I hear all the time. I'm a small family, I don't make it. Just me, just find people saying that up there, right? Well, yeah, but and there's like, thousands of us that live here, ultimately, and that's up. So, you gotta start somewhere to start that up. So if you look at that, to me, that's a good and healthy illustration of a community. Now, listen, I'm putting it on myself. I'm in that range, so I'd have to be forcing myself to spend money. I don't like to spend money, and when anybody else likes to spend money, but I think that that's a start, especially because there's a significant part of this area that actually doesn't get, phase 1 through Ward 3, I believe, right?
It's 32%.
Yeah, so it's a non-trivial amount.
Yeah.
It's a third. And you get it relatively quickly, which I would still say that we're not seeing the true impact, because I would argue that those houses are occupied, in a very substantial way seasonally and producing a lot of wastewater. One of the things that I thought about for a long time that we could look at is water usage against this, to really identify exactly what's going on. Because you'd be able to look at houses and say, okay, these guys have 25 people there on the weekend, they're flushing the toilet every 15 minutes.
We did that.
It's a pretty big.
Unfortunately, in COM, you can't really look at the water usage because they don't have the duct meters, so.
I know they don't, because we put in special meters to be able to look at that, but that's the kind of thing we should be able to do, right? I know, twice a year, it doesn't give you the information you want, but.
See, just looking at that, I'm going to ask you, because you do a lot of work up in the upper watershed, right?
Yeah.
So what about making that, for those parcels adjacent to salt water and not doing the upper part? Does that make any sense in regards to the programs and the projects that you're doing for nitrogen removal and natural land there? And then does that get
I'd have to do the math with Griffin to realize, be able to know.
they're just
The cumulative impact. I mean, we're doing a lot of work, and Scott's got a nice little garden. You guys have to come out and visit when I actually all this stuff. So we literally do. Gonna show a picture of it. And even the early results look like, we could get a pretty healthy reduction if we do the cranberry bogs. That could be very impactful, So yeah, the combination, could be something that should be looked at.
Yeah,
which I think is a relatively low cost
about
solution.
the systems along the river.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
once the water leaves the bog, there's still a pretty good stretch there of systems along the river that's nice to pick up.
Yeah.
I don't know where that,
Where
where the bogs are, they can't even tell.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay, so you are getting those, right.
This hatched area is roughly the bogs.
Yeah.
Are
Oh,
going
right,
down
right,
through,
right,
yeah.
right.
So it's a good question, Tom, 'cause we spend a lot of money fixing the bogs to remove the nitrogen, then we don't need to get those upgrades down.
And you get the whole nexus of, going after the houses, that are adjacent to the salt water, because, you know, what we talked about to begin with was to say that
Right,
we want to get
protection, right?
estuary protection, we want to get the nitrogen out of the estuaries quick, and, you know, we could look at the science of the water and say, you know, once it gets in.
But travel time in the river, so if your house is 40 feet from the river, I'd argue that your nitrogen is probably getting down into the free bays almost as fast as the house that's 450 feet from the edge of the water.
Yes.
Because it's, you know, what was the residence time down that river? I mean, you guys done that, I mean, it's probably hours, not years.
But it still has to go through groundwater, so, you know, all those houses adjacent to salt water have that same, they all have that same, let's say, distance, travel time. It's just a matter of, you get that up in,
So
fresh water.
remind me
You all
how
have all the
go ahead,
other things going on there.
Well, we were mentioning phase 3 for IAs and going forward and people replacing their septics. What about the other watershed areas that aren't sewered and their septic fails and they are within 500 feet? Are we talking about town-wide or just phase 3 area, this area? You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do.
yeah.
We need to see the other map, I think, to have a better plot of it.
Area around the freshwater pond stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking,
But we're not removing phosphorus here, so.
I know, but when you go up there, you need phosphorus to remove it.
Different
I know,
meaning,
I know.
I think.
no, but there are definitely areas that aren't sewered. I mean,
Yeah, I hear what you're.
Yeah, those are the maps that we had last
Yeah.
meeting that showed all the other two watersheds. included
That's
special-
a good question. And, you know, to your point, Rob, you said a while ago that, you know, things are getting warmer. So even though your calculations show that the sewer is gonna work and go forward 10 or 15 years and it's another couple degrees warmer, maybe not.
I think if you look at the phase maps, and, you know, the reason we're looking at 3 bays is because, you know, everything's happening on the east side already. You know, the plan pretty aggressive there. And, you know, what's that, phase 1 and this is phase 2 over here? Yeah, so.
One of the rib values looking at 3 bays is also because that whole phase 3 area, I mean, if we're gonna, you know, to Z's point, if we're ever going to lop something off,
Right, that'd be the most likely.
that's the area we'd like to lop off. So you need to have impact to that,
Yeah,
to that watershed to be able to do that. That's not to say you shouldn't do more other places. That's up to you guys as a committee to make recommendations.
Yeah.
But that's why that was there. It wasn't.
Yeah.
That's
Ultimately,
No, I
fairly
understand
consistent with
that.
our original plan, which
Yeah.
was to
Yeah.
take a non-traditional approach in the phase 3 area in the Marstonfield River, which is why we keep on this.
So Rob, we can talk more about this offline, but while the others are here, how do we actually, how do you envision if we actually draft this recommendation?
So we gave you a draft of something last
Yep.
week or last month
Mhm.
to sort of chew on. At some point in time, it's your committee. You all got to decide what you want that to look like. I mean, I'm certainly happy, but I don't want to be accused of sort of like driving you guys to something. I mean, we gave you sort of our thoughts, what we heard you say, and we had the phase 3 part in based on the conversations we've had, and stuff. I think at some point you have to decide, is that enough? Do you want to do more? Do you want to do less?
That's my question. Maybe it's a question. Maybe, how do we do that? How do we? Rob used to write laws. How do you do this?
No, don't put me on.
Hey, you now have at least what I've heard, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, sort of tacit understanding, if not approval from the health side. You know, they didn't come in and say, this is a terrible idea, don't do it. You may want to touch back to the mill piece on the financial part, if you want, we could ask him to come in via Zoom, obviously, and do that. But at some point in time, you gotta decide what you want your recommendation to be.
Yeah.
And what you want that to do.
Well, maybe Brian and I can take what you've written, and would that make sense?
Sure.
And edit it back to this group for discussion. I'm just trying to figure out the process here.
Yeah, well, the only thing the concern I'd raise is the finances. I mean, I think we have a sense in terms of, timing and priorities. But I don't think there's been enough discussion about the financial aspects and the impacts this is gonna have on homeowners and on the community. I don't have a sense of that.
Yeah.
Where we're going on this. I don't know, do people feel similar?
I think that's the biggest part of the equation, actually, is looking at that in terms of not only what is the cost, but if we look at the mitigation potential with the tax credit that's available at the state.
Yeah.
Scott started out talking about that. What you'd have to pay for a new Title V system, and compare that with the very simple math of sewer expansion.
Yeah.
It's a really significant difference.
Yeah.
So could we get Mark to come back and have a more specific discussion?
I don't, he's
the most informed of the town, right? He's the expert, so.
I guess given it for finances is why I like the 500 around the saltwater.
Which I think, to me, the potential approach is to do a phased approach, just like the sewer, okay? And say phase one is gonna be the saltwater, corridor going up the Mark River, right? It's X number of houses, and it's gonna be based on this, okay? You do a new addition, whatever it is, and then within that context, there are gonna be some things that I think are gonna incentivize people that they don't even know they can do. You can add a couple of bedrooms, you can add an ADU, you can do some things that you didn't even know you could do. It's gonna cost the town zero because they're just gonna go do it, right? And we know the math is, I don't know the math in that corridor, but I can tell you the math in town is roughly 60% full-time residents, okay? And it's also roughly 60% of those people that make over $90,000, which are the same people that can get the tax credit of $18,000. So those are the numbers. I've done the math, rough terms. So there's a pretty powerful incentive to do that at, I think, relatively low cost to the town. Going forward to get started, and then maybe the second phase, maybe that's in 5 years, is to actually go after the phase 3 area of the sewer, which at that point is still 15 years away. And we'll learn a lot, we'll see a lot, and the two farms will have a lot of information by then about, well, by that time we have to do, maybe.
Two Toms version two.
I would just like to say that it seems like what we suggest to be implemented is one branch, and a fairly independent branch is how it gets paid for. There's some interaction between the two, but they're rather independent. And town council may want to weigh in more on the paid for.
Translate that makes I couldn't hear it. What did he say?
He's saying two separate issues.
I said they're two independent issues, really.
Yeah.
One is what you want to do technically in terms of implementing that. The second is the financing piece of it. They're related, but they're really sort of two independent issues. The town council may decide to chew on them.
But I think
different.
I don't think you can separate.
Yeah, I think the rub point, we gotta have a good financial answer if we're gonna recommend this.
I'm just relaying what Brian said.
Plan to pay for.
I'm gonna suggest a faster phase than your first phase was. A real fast phase is just ask the Board of Health to require IA systems near water. Anytime anybody needs an environmental variance near a water body, require an IA system. We've had a number of them where they weren't required. Right, the system.
Say environmental variance, what do you mean?
Setback to.
Oh, okay.
Say setback to a pond, say
right.
it's 75 feet,
Okay.
and we have 100 setback.
Yeah.
Make them automatically require an IA system.
Sure, I think that does make some more sense. Yeah, we could, that kind of moves away from the context of the watershed permit anyway.
Because they're already coming to our board for variance.
Right.
When I
So
say
it
environment,
releases-
could be
releases the
separate
question.
from groundwater.
Yeah, I
and
think
setback.
that's what should happen.
I said 100 feet, how would you feel about 500 feet?
I only need a couple. About, we have about 5 per agenda, right? 5 of you,
Yeah, 4 or 5.
Tom, you said 100 feet, how would you feel about 500 feet?
I'm okay, I'm just trying to do a quicker phase.
Okay.
One. He was phasing it out, right? We could do something really quick without.
I don't think those have to be mutually exclusive though.
Yeah.
I think you could pick on the corridor, salt water body, and at the same time say, and, it's an and, not an or, right? And anybody that's within 100 feet that should automatically trigger an upgrade. I agree with that.
With an IA system.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's something I think we could ask the board to do starting next month. I mean, quick, not wait until next year.
Well, not that you even think, that's, you said within 100 feet, you said if they're seeking a variance.
Oh,
Not everyone is seeking a variance.
Right. If they're within, if they're within 100 feet, they need a variance. That's why I thought.
Yeah, but 500 feet.
Well, 500 feet, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so we're gonna wrap this up in 12 minutes. I want to make another recommendation or?
So let me just ask, so do you want us to have Milne come in next meeting or not?
What do you think, Rob?
Well, I don't know, I threw it out there, I'm still a little uncertain about it.
I think
just
should.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should be the one stuck with it.
Yeah, exactly. But you're right, if you draw it out based on 500, based on the
Well,
based on the number of parcels, what is this, what's the impact?
That's a good idea.
What's it cost?
Chris,
If the town pays for it, what would it cost?
In a pragmatic sense, if it's around the water barrier there and it's on property transfer, isn't like an IA system pretty much chump change for a property transfer exchange for that area?
Yeah, but even
the
if
town
some
needs
don't
to
want to pay the
subsidize
money.
that. The town needs to subsidize that. I don't.
We'll call them,
So we're gonna have Mark. I mean, you have a nexus, you have, what else? Justify it.
I think it'd be good to get Mark in. It's been very successful. He got huge credit for not having us already going next year and looking for an override. But we know we're going eventually. We know we're going more than once, right? Because the numbers are not getting smaller, they're gonna get bigger. So
taking up pension fund and putting it on scratch tickets.
Suggestion, maybe we should compile some questions for Mark in advance. So we
Compile what?
compile what questions are from Mark.
Credit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my questions, as I said before, is how does this relate to the 18K tax credit?
If you want to talk about that, I think you should get, does anyone know a tax attorney or a tax expert?
So you may not
might
know
want to
that.
ask them, yeah.
that
That's
may
not
not
Mark's expertise.
Okay.
may not be Mark.
Right.
And I think it's a good idea, we may just wanna, in the meantime,
You can work through the chair and compile questions.
yeah, we may compile some questions and maybe Mark can be online, and.
Well, he'll definitely be online.
Yeah, so that's
He won't be physically there, but.
How do we find a tax?
I don't know if anyone knows anyone, if someone lives in town, maybe they'd be willing to come.
See, I mean, this is specific to this new legislation that, again, is not clear when you read it.
Is this a permanent? Or is it sunsetted?
I don't know. It's a good question.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure on that.
I haven't heard
so.
sunsetting.
I don't think so.
Sorry.
The first one was.
I mean, ideally, it'd be nice to get somebody from DOR, state DOR, but I don't know, we'll do that. I don't know who that person is.
To my understanding, Mark knows that subject pretty well.
He does,
Because
okay.
when I talked to him in
Okay.
terms of the credit and stuff like
Okay.
that, he sent me the information and all that stuff.
So that's
And I
one
think
question.
the town has limited tools to give any specific credit, as I understand it, from talking about. We need like state and legislative approval to have town provide any incentive, like you need a credit against your, annual tax bill kind of thing. That's not a simple thing.
Yeah.
What I
He
do think,
mentioned that a couple
what
of
I
meetings
do think the route is likely to be is if we can use SRF funding or other mechanisms, that may change the context of what we're looking at.
And that's really the
So
question.
if we can finance some of the IAs longer term under that package, that may be very powerful.
Very powerful.
That's what I would think.
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
So Griffin, can you send me this information so that I can kind of study a little bit in terms of that, trying to understand more?
I'd like to do that too, if you don't mind.
And I wonder if there's a way to look at the hundredths of things down the line.
The variance,
100, you said?
how many variances?
You just said within 100 feet. It'd be nice to look at, how many houses are within 100 feet of a water body in the entire town? Sure.
So that's fresh and salt, right?
Yeah.
It's just any water.
Any wetland, actually,
Yeah, it's a septic system, right? And so we don't have, your septic system is slotted, and we don't.
No, but you could, my house is on, I don't think so.
Right, this is the one about there, time to help that.
You're filling next time up with a lot of stuff. It's on the discussion for either next time or the time
Yeah,
after.
we'll put it up to the next one,
You
and
know,
we'll get to it.
One at a time.
I know.
It's gonna take at least 3 or 4 sessions, so I've been waiting for grinders for what, 12 months?
We'll get it on to the next meeting, grinders.
Sure, we need public comments, only before we hang up, or do we already have those?
Oh, yeah, public comments? There are no public here. I don't think so. Matters not anticipated chair. Anything else with grinder comments? We'll get that out there. Mark Melton. August 11th.
August 11th.
Right.
Fine.
then we'll talk sometime in the interim to try to.
Set up a meeting with Brian, maybe.
Yeah.
The draft language, start working on that a little bit.
Yeah, take a look at that. I mean, that's what we started with and we haven't touched it since. 'Cause it's
Yep.
to you guys now to sort of digest and decide what you want.
Yep. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Well, before that, if you have a draft, you mind to share with us?
On what?
Sorry?
A draft.
Oh, yeah.
Chris sent that.
Well, I'll send.
Chris, didn't you send that over to Tom and Tom?
Yeah, I thought the draft, the bullet,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The bullet
Yeah.
point one?
Send it again.
Yeah, I'll resend it to you.
It was very simple.
Yeah, it outlines ideas.
You have ideas, edit, even if you're not gonna be here, you're gonna be in the next meeting, maybe? August 11th?
I don't know, I have to put them up in my schedule.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for being here.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
You added to the.
Good luck on your slide. I hope you meet his record.
5.5, huh?
Good. Thank you, Brian.
We do nice one.
Second.
Wait, who motion?
My motion.
Gotta be roll call.
Gotta be roll.
I'm sorry, guys, I'm not getting in trouble for this. Scott Horsley.
Yes.
Brian Hughes.
Yes.
Tom Camberry.
Yes.
Lee Crocker.
Yes.
Paul Leary.
Yes.
Ronald Leary.
Yes.
Louis O'Neill.
Yes.
Butch Roberts.
Yes.
Here.
Lovely. Have a wonderful
is here.
evening, everyone.